Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. I'm your host, Quaviondre Williams.
And I'm Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. Daquon, honey, what is hot on the table this week?
Girl, so first we gotta talk about Disney. So recently, Disney released the trailer to the forthcoming film, Sneakerella, which features a primarily Black cast obsessed with sneakers in a modern, gender-bent twist on Cinderella. Many people expressed their frustration with the racial undertones of the movie, such as Twitter user Orlink, who tweeted, "How does Disney have the audacity to put out a Black Cinderella film called Sneakerella? Ain't no way this shit ain't racially motivated. Bet you 100% the director is white too." Well, their assumption proved to be more than correct, with the director being a white woman and all but one of the credited writers being white. It should be noted that the one Black writer was the last to be credited, which may suggest that he had a lesser impact than the other writers. So I wanted to ask you, do you think that this movie is problematic and racially motivated?
100, 1,000, 1,000,000,000%. I don't, Daquan, this just cannot, like, this feels like, somebody said this online, I thought this was so cool. They were like, this sounds like a Key and Peele sketch, or like an SNL, like an SNL sketch of like the white writers decide to make a story about Black people and they're calling it Sneakerella coming this fall. Like, it's really giving that energy. It feels like this is not real. And the fact that this whole story was pitched, written, and directed by all white people, with the exception of one, probably like you said before, very not involved Black person, just the one person. It's just like, how did this happen? Like, I don't like, dude. There must not be no Black people at Disney. There must not be any Black people in the Disney's writing room.
Obviously not.
Because I just cannot buy into the fact that somebody wrote this down and somebody was like, yes, sneakers, Black people. How do we get the niggers? How do we get the Negroes? Ah, yes, they love the sneakers. Let's make the whole character them loving sneakers. Daquan.
Literally, when I saw the trailer, when you sent me the trailer and I watched it, I was like, they're not serious. This is a parody channel. This has to be, because what is happening? And I was so frustrated and annoyed because, like, so here's the thing. You know, could a movie centering Black people in sneaker culture be a great movie?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I can tell from this trailer alone that this movie ain't it. Like, when you think about how shoes are signified within Black communities, there is a significant cultural history and it's rich. You know, thinking about like slavery, enslaved people had scraps for shoes if they even had anything. So you can start to see why having a sturdy, good pair of shoes would mean and represent so much to them. Or even getting a little bit more grotesque, like during slavery and early Jim Crow, they took the skin and flesh of Black people to make it into leather to make shoes with.
Yeah.
Or bringing it to like a more contemporary time. Like we hear stories about how like shoes are thrown on to power lines to represent people and memorials that are like young Black people who died too soon. And even like sneakerhead culture itself, which like came from Black culture, you can think things like Jordans and how they are like this big symbol for Black youth, that, you know, if they had sneakers like Jordan, then they can be like Jordan and get out of the hood. Which like Mike did. And that original screenplay was written by Michael Elliott, who's an African-American screenwriter. So it's like one of those things. Yeah. So it's one of those things that like there's all of this significance of how shoes throughout history have literally and figuratively held the lives, stories, dreams, and imagination of Black people within them. And so that's why it's so frustrating to see something like Sneakerella, which just commodifies a stereotype about Black people being obsessed with shoes and has a writer's room that looks like an untitled Google Doc. Like, so I'm just going to have to steal a page out of your book, Quaviondre. Dear Hollywood, stop capitalizing off of Black cultural significance when you don't have significant Black culture.
Period. And it's so interesting that you brought that up, because I wanted that like Mike, like that movie, you just took me back to like 2000 and whatever. Like that just took me all the way back. And like thinking back then, it's so crazy because I don't think that Disney or these major film companies that are oftentimes spearheaded and controlled by white people understand the significance of nuance. Because in communities of color, you know, looking outside of something and saying, oh, Black people like shoes or whatever the case may be, and not understanding the cultural impact of what shoes mean to Black culture and why it's taken so seriously to some regard and stuff like that. So it's just like, I think that they're missing here is nuance. They're missing nuance. They're missing the fact that we are so tired of white people telling stories that they do not come from. We are so tired of seeing people who are not within that culture writing about that cultural community. And it baffles me because, I mean, we've seen time and time again how this just does not work. This formula does not work. It never has. And I don't understand why we're even having this conversation in 2021. Have we not learned anything in this past decade? Have we not learned anything in the fact that Black people want to take in stories that are made by Black people? You know what I mean? Like, do you remember that big cultural impact, the one-on-one, half and half, and Martin and stuff like that? Shows that are written with Black people in mind, with Black people in the writings room, with people who are making those decisions, because we know what we like and we understand what we're saying. And I always say to people all the time is that, like, you can always, and I don't care who you are, as an African American, as a person of any cultural community, if someone makes a movie or a TV show about your cultural community, you can always tell whether or not it was people from that community writing it or if it's somebody looking outside of it in. And with this movie, the trailer, I had no doubt in my mind it was white people. I had no doubt in my, Daquon, it was in seconds. The first 10 to 20 seconds, I was like, a white man wrote this. A white man and a white woman or something like that. But in this case, all white women who wrote it. And it was just like, are you for real? Are y'all serious right now? Like, to me, it's honestly, it's so damaging. Because it further prepares, and the worst part is if white people take in this film, because of course it won't be Black people taking it in, but if white people take in this film and appreciate it and then like it or whatever the case may be, then that'll only further Disney's objective. I'm glad that we're starting to see the social outcry more significantly now, because people are saying that like it was so bad that Disney actually had to turn off their dislikes because of how savage.
Wait, God. Whew.
Oh, yes. They had to turn off their dislikes because of just how badly they were getting read into and just how badly they were the film was received. And I'm like, I feel so bad. Then what really hurts the most is those Black actors who are probably like, this is the only role that is written for us. And even though it's not written by us, it's the only role I could probably get. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't blame the actors themselves, because they're just doing a job. They're trying to get in a system that is purposefully ignoring their stories and ignoring creating characters that they can play. So it just feels bad because maybe the acting is pretty good. Maybe, I don't know, but this is Disney. But anyway, this is Disney. But
shade, I call shade.
But maybe the acting is pretty decent, and now these actors are basically going to have to, be forever associated with this culture vulture type film. And you know what I'm saying? Like, do you see what I'm saying here about that? Like, I feel so bad for them, because I know as an actor also, knowing just how difficult it is to have a role that you can play, and just how little roles there are, because every role is written, most roles are written for white people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like I remember scrolling through Twitter and like seeing how excited one of the actors was to like finally have like their kind of like big break. Like it is
Yes,
Disney. Disney has this huge name, this huge brand behind it. So it is like one of these huge breaks that only come, maybe once in a lifetime.
yeah,
So it's one of those situations where like I don't blame the actors at all for being in this because like at the end of the day, like if they weren't taking this role, there's not that many other roles that they can take. And if they
especially
did
at
come in,
Disney.
yeah, especially at Disney, and even like after getting into the role, like I think that they don't have much of a say because like if they come to the writers room as an actor and be like, hey, like this is kind of problematic and like try to change their character for like the better, then like they're just going to be blackballed in Hollywood. So it's one
Blackball
of
the
those
fired. Yep.
yeah, so it's one of those situations where like this is their chance to get a bag, so I'm not going to like downplay them on getting a bag. Like the problem is these writers and these directors who always lean into stereotypes when it comes to telling stories about communities that they're not from. Like it is so frustrating. Like I think the only black Cinderella should be the Brandy Cinderella because that's the only
Yeah.
one I will ever recognize. I don't recognize Sneakerella or whatever it's
No,
called. Like
and it's crazy because like I don't understand how I don't I just it just baffles me that this is happening. Like that's just what I'm so shook right now because I'm kind of like I thought, not saying that we were in some kind of renaissance or something like that, but I was like I thought that we were moving in a more positive direction. Like after movies like like after this new wave of showcasing people of color and stories by people of color, I thought maybe we've kind of moved past that and people recognize, like the big companies and stuff recognize that we want people in the writer's room who look like us. We want people who look like us writing about us. If you're not gay, no one's, and the crazy part is no one is saying that you can't write a story about another culture. No one is saying that. I do think that there is something to be said about your level of research within that culture because
right.
one Google search would explain why basing an entire movie about black people about sneakers is a problem. Like you know what I mean? Like one
Or
Google
or
search.
one Google search would tell them not to release the movie in February, Black History Month.
I mean, and it's just to me, it's so problematic because it's just like I don't understand how you can soak and this goes further into the entitlement of white people. And like I don't understand how you can be so confident in your skills as a writer to write about somebody else's experience that you as a white woman or it was a white I think it was a white man in there too, right?
There was a
Yeah,
couple white men.
you as white people are so confident in your ability as a writer to write from an experience that you have never in your life could understand or fathom. You may be able to understand and grasp maybe 5 to 10% of the Black experience through research and education. But the true nature of Black people, the true essence of our culture can only be captured by someone of that culture. So if they had just made a regular story and just had Black people as the main characters, that would not have been a problem. But it's the arrogance for me. It's
Right.
the arrogance of writing a story so confidently thinking and believing that, oh yes, honey, we're writing about Black people. We know what they like. We know what they like. We'll figure they'll like it. They'll enjoy this. And then not to consult, not to have, I mean, not to have at least half of the writers team being Black. At
At least
least half.
bare minimum.
Or at least have I have the Black director to
That
show
part.
a Black viewpoint in a Black movie. It's I don't understand, and I think it's just incredibly. It just to me feels like a quick cash grab, and I really hope that Disney gets I really hope these people tear them a new one on this one. I really
Right.
hope that the anger and the rage from this story keeps up, and when it comes out, people dog walk even more. And I feel really bad for the actors. I really, really do. But I hope that we can make enough noise as fellow actors and writers and whatever's and so on and so forth to say, hey, this is not okay. Don't do this shit again. And hopefully Disney will understand, because the only way you can get white people to understand something, the only way you can get rich white people to understand something is to fuck with their money. And so when you fuck with the money, they recognize, we'll do just something different next time. We'll get black people next time. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, we fucked it up. We dropped the ball. Sorry about it.